welcome to the podcast. I'm so excited to talk with you today and have my audience get to know you.
Ooh, thanks a bunch for having me, Elena. Appreciate you having me on. It's gonna be fun on all the buttons.
Absolutely. So my first question to my guest is always like, can you just tell me your career story, set the scene for us, for my audience, in terms of who you are, what's your background, what are you doing today for hobbies, for your career, because I feel like that's very interrelated in your case. So tell me more.
Sure thing. Well, once upon a time, there was three wonderful houses. Then there was Goldilocks, and then there was actually me, Dom Brightmon, who actually grew a love of books and actual love for helping out people from working in a public library setting for 15 years now, which I still can't believe, and actually transmuting love for books and people to create my own business of being able to encourage and equip others to share the stories and get them out there. Because back in 2012, that wonderful year where there was a popular end time prophecy in the US of A, they've made a whole movie about it. 2012, oh God, tornadoes, hurricanes,
Mhm.
we're gonna die. Like, hide your kids, hide your wife, like, put on a wonderful fez, protect yourself. Like, it, even though all that didn't happen, I actually had a paradigm shift where had a setback sandwich of my father being diagnosed with Alzheimer's. And then a month later, when I turned 21, on the day of my birthday, I got into a car accident when I was on my way to IT security class. And to put the third part together, the setback sandwich together, I was called in a meeting with my boss a couple weeks later because I was screwing up in a whole bunch of areas because my internal was coming out in the external world. And especially with folks with careers and those being in business, like they're really, we all live one true lives. Now, granted, there's folks out there may say they live a double life. At the end of the day, we live this one life and we just have these different pieces. And with my professional and personal life, they came together with some internal struggle. So I ended up having to really reinvent myself. And that involved actually reading John Maxwell's books that changed my life forever. And funny enough, looking back at that meeting I had with the boss, she mentioned that I was going to be a leader for those new employees coming in because at the time I had a part time job where it was 5 years of experience. And if you're with the company for 5 years, you got to figure, hey, they didn't do nothing stupid enough to get fired yet, so they got to know something. And they're like, hey, I guess I do know something. It's time to show it off. And that just led me to realize, you know what? I'm actually a leader, and we're all leaders in our own separate ways. It's just varying degrees of influence. And that just led to me reading at least 50 plus books a year, starting my own podcast, writing a couple books of my own. And now I'm here and looking to grow and go even further than before.
That's awesome. I love that. I'm always curious about how people come around to doing what they're doing, right? And it's just fascinating to me how there's just so many stories out there. And to your point on stories and how powerful they are and how much we can learn and get inspired from them, which is why I also love podcasting and listening to podcasts and doing a podcast, is because you just learn so much. And I'm sure you feel a similar way when you do podcasts, is that you learn so much about yourself through this process of like interviewing people and doing research about them. So that it's really, really lovely to hear. So it sounds like you've had that pivotal moment in your, right in your early 20s, but you could have gone the other way, right? So what was it that inspired you to say, I like to pick up that first book that kind of inspired you? And what was it specifically? And what I'm trying to get is that some people kind of go the other side, like they go to the dark side, right? And sometimes you go in the opposite direction. So was there anybody in your life? Was it something in you that was like, no, I just want to go to this, and I'm going to pick up this book, and that's what I'm going to do with this situation and with my circumstances?
Good question indeed. And yeah, the dark side could have been tempting. I mean, as the joke goes, the dark side is cookies. Of course, you want to join the dark side. But hey, I said no to the cookies and said yes to becoming a champion in my own life by realizing that, hey, I have two wonderful parents who took care of me. And shortly before my dad had his Alzheimer's flare up and actually get to the point where he was no longer able to drive, I had a conversation with him one day because even in his early 80s, he was still lifting heavy boxes for our church at the time, even in his early 80s. And one day, one of the folks who's usually responsible for ordering the food, she ordered a little extra, and the boxes were a little extra heavier and bigger. And he was just feeling so drained and tired. And he what at times he would complain about it, and then I'd be like, "Well, why do you help out so much and like come back all tired and when you feel the pain afterwards?" And he's like, "God's been too good to me for me not to be good to other people." And just having that hard work ethic, even in his early 80s, it
Mm,
just that role model of, hey, if he's still working hard in his 80s, I can at least contribute to society. And just that positive trait that he had that I still carry with me to this day, since he's no longer in this world, is really just that hard work and being there for him. Because on top of that, my father himself, he dropped out of high school. He never finished his schooling at all, and he wanted to make sure I didn't make the mistake that he did. And the reading is one of the ways that I've actually educated myself on top of everything else to really stay ahead of the game and stay informed.
mm. Reading is so, so essential. Maybe this is a difficult question because I'm sure you have so many, but do you have any favorite books? You mentioned of one that kind of changed your life. Can you tell us what was it about that book? What was the message? And maybe if you have another one.
Sure thing. John Maxwell's book, Thinking for a Change, Thinking for a Change. And it's something that a lot of folks can do for a change because sometimes when you look on the cesspool of social media, you're like, man, they did not think that through, did they? So I want to make sure I went the opposite route and decided to become a better thinker. That book really helped me to focus on being a better thinker. And the two main things I got from that book that John wrote and mentioned in that book is the two questions that Ben Franklin asked himself every day. The two questions every day is one, what good will I do today? And at the end of the day, what good did I do today? So focusing on doing good when you're alive and around other people, and then at the end of the day, taking stock of how your day went and seeing if you did some good in the world. And just focusing on the good and not just feeling good will put you over the edge. Heck, even two other bonus books I'll mention is John Maxwell's book Leader Shift that was actually written a year before COVID, which is actually pretty timing. And one of my favorite shifts from the book is moving from ladder climber to ladder builder, where you're actually building the ladder as you're climbing one ladder. So that way, folks can come behind you and you can carry and bring them up with you as opposed to being selfish with everything you have. And
Mm,
with what you and I are both doing, like having a podcast, like connecting with other wonderful humans across the globe, learning from them, hearing their stories. It's a way to build a ladder for others so that way we can collectively combine our efforts and learn from each other and be the best humans that we definitely can be.
mm. That's so beautiful. I love that mindset. I love everything that you said. And I love the two questions. I think if we can just ask ourselves, and it's a great reminder even for myself. I mean, those are two great questions. What good am I going to do today? And what good did I do today at the end of the day? It's beautiful. And I'm curious, so you also, you have that creative kind of edge to you. So what is your creative process, whether it is, doing your podcasting or writing books? Like where does that come from? I guess that inspiration to do is based on kind of what you mentioned, but how do you actually sit down and write a book? I guess that's the question.
Hey, solid good question. One of my favorite quotes of all time that my coach Daniel Alley told me is ink it when you think it. Ink it
Think
when
it
you
when you
think it
think it.
because yeah, catchy, right? It's so good. It's so simple and it makes perfect sense because especially me who has a lot of thoughts running through his mind a lot, especially during meditating for the first couple minutes. it's sometimes good to always have a notebook with you or even have your smartphone voice record some of the thoughts in your head and just getting them down and getting them captured. So that way you can use them later down the road, or you can use them to laugh at yourself down the road later too. Because my first ever book, I actually hand wrote it, then went back and retyped it. And as I was typing and transcribing it to polish it up and edit it again, I was like, man, what the heck was I smoking when I wrote this? This doesn't sound good at all. It felt good when I wrote it down. It looked good. Like that must have been the coffee brain talking. Like it just didn't look good at all. And just that one major tip of just taking it when you think it. And another thing too is just looking for associations. Like one thing when it comes to researching guests for my podcast, I usually listen to, well, anywhere between 1 to 2 hours of their past interviews if they have a track record of being interviewed already, and getting a feel for where they come from and how they sound on the microphone. But now granted, if their sound test failed, they probably never got invited anyway. But just actually paying attention, diving into their content, seeing what aligns, seeing where we fit. Because one guest in particular, a couple years ago, actually almost 4 years ago, a musician named David Ritz, he actually wrote the song Sexual Healing for Marvin Gaye, and he is a ghostwriter, biographer for a lot of famous musicians. And
Mm.
as I was reading his book, The God Groove, he mentioned how his daughter was born on September 6th. And I'm like, wait, that's my birthday. And I ended up telling him about that. And we just connected right then and there. And it just showed actually paid attention and did my research. So inking things when you think about things and then looking for how things associate with one another. And as you study one subject over time, you'll start to notice how things really meld together and you're basically building a statue of Legos. It's like playing Tetris almost.
Hmm. Yeah, that's a nice analogy. I always think of like back to my first episode of like podcasting, and I look and I'm like, oh my God, this is so bad. And I feel like it's the same with the process of book writing, you know. And as I mentioned to you, we also recently wrote a book with my business partner. And you know, when you start writing it like a year ago, and then you're doing the editing, and you're like, oh, MG, like what we're thinking, you know. But it's like, yeah, sometimes you just gotta let it go, like you know, because it's like, you know, like you can't edit everything out, or you have to just start all over again, then you're never going to publish a book. So I think it's like finding that balance where you're like, okay, it's okay, it's good, you know, it's still going to add value, and I'm just going to do part two with this new material, this new research that came out, etc. So, and I feel the same way about podcasting. Like I said, well, like when you look at the first episode, you're like, oh gosh, can I just erase it? And you're like, no, it was all part of the process, you know, part of the process, part of the journey. I gotta keep it so it's out there if anybody wants to see the awful first episode that I've recorded. My poor guest. I feel so bad. I want to go back and re-record it with him. But good thing he's a good friend of mine, so he was kind to me. um yeah, no, that's very very interesting. And so you know, you have your work, then you have your hobbies and your business. So, you know, how do you find balance? How do you manage all of those different things? Because a lot of these things they take time, right? And it take a lot of thought and a lot of research and reading. So how do you have like specific routines that you follow, or how do you manage all of these different hats that you wear?
Another solid question, and then definitely kind of a required question for those who want to become elite performers, because you really have to take care of yourself. It's even a reason why a lot of ancient philosophies, the Bible, talks about the whole 7 days of creation, where the world was created in 6 days and the creator rested on the seventh day. And I do that myself, where at least every weekend on a Sunday, I'd usually try to make that my day of rest, where I actually rest. And when it's not the day of rest, I got two pockets every day, where I like to call it the pockets of peace and the pockets of play. The pockets of peace is where I'm basically doing things that keep me calm, like sitting down and meditating, especially when I first wake up in the morning, where I actually give myself quiet time and actually sitting in a chair and just thinking. And it could be about anything, just being with my thoughts and just sitting and being with myself. Because if you sit and be with yourself and learn to like yourself and eventually love yourself, you'll be able to really dominate more into the world. And the pockets of play is just something that I love to do, like video games, even some funny YouTube videos, even some podcasts I like to listen to that are more for the fun side as opposed to just all business and just being serious. Because the thing is, humans are really built for play, and sometimes your best content comes from play where you're just having fun. Funny enough, one of my most popular episodes last year with the guests, we probably laughed for probably half of the 40 minutes because we were just gelling so well together, and we just busted out laughing even before the episode started, and we just clicked instantly. So yeah, just have those two pockets every day. It's just 15 minutes, something that you love to do in 15 minutes of self care. Have those two pockets, a pocket of peace, a pocket of play, and at least give yourself a day of rest where you can get a little extra sleep more than usual. Now, I know it may be easier said than done for those who may be parents. I'm from the outside looking in on that one, but hey, it can happen. It can happen. Distract the kids with chores. That might be able to keep them settled for a bit.
Solid advice right there. um, and I love the two pocket of peace and pocket of play. That's so catchy. Lots of catchy stuff, Dom. I love it. Ink it when you think it, and then the two pockets. So, and you then kind of, part of what you're doing is, of course, is interviewing authors and really kind of having them come on the show. Do you focus on specific genre? Do you, and if yes, like what is your interest, I guess, but like who are you interested in talking to and why that area of kind of creative work, if there is a specific area?
I have to say it's not too specific now. In the beginning, it was only going to be business, leadership, self development writers, and self help writers. But as I went along, I realized, hey, some of these novel fiction writers are more fun than the boring business types. Not to say that everybody's boring in the business world,
Mm-hmm.
but like just the novelists, write fiction novels. Heck, even one guest I had back in 2020, another one of those fun episodes, Kat Hudson, she writes on minimum 10,000 words a day. She's a ghostwriter
Wow.
that writes science fiction novels for her clients, and she can knock out a book a week minimum just from the 10,000 words a day of ghostwriting. And she talked about how she thought that that was just a lie when she asked other ghostwriters, like, hey, how do they do their ghostwriting? What is their process for it? And what's the expected word count? And she was like, man, 10,000 words, that's BS. And then when she got to that point, it's like, hey, it's actually pretty easy because she found her flow. She stuck with it. And she actually, at least from the time that we talked when she was still writing. She's taking a break now, but she would also have a standing desk as well. So that way she can stay fit and not just focus on sitting down the whole time, because that's the drawback of the society and the environment that we're in now. A lot of folks can still work from home or do hybrid work, and we really don't get outside that much. And if you can find ways to keep your body mobile and in motion, then you'll extend your youth. So don't really have a genre. I usually stay away from folks who write about politics usually because I don't want to get in that route. I feel like politics are the new religion, and the Crusades from the 1500s could pop off again any moment in the US of A if you bring up politics with the wrong people who don't have their full mind open to just hearing what other people have to say.
Yeah, agreed on that one. No politics. And so what have you found is like the most, I guess, eye-opening, or not the most, maybe there's just some lessons, like as you talk to so many people, I'm sure you've had your reflections and things that might have surprised you. Maybe there's some themes that you saw across the authors, for example, or people that you speak with. Is there anything that comes to mind?
Ah, yes, reinvention. Reinvention. That's one of the major traits that I've noticed because a lot of writers, especially as their careers they expand and grow, they reinvented themselves. Heck, even one guy, Clint Arthur, he actually helps folks to develop their own celebrity brand as an entrepreneur by getting on TV and radio interviews. and he's reinvented himself multiple times, and he's written multiple books where he's actually found his perfect niche now, where his thing now is just helping folks to become a celebrity brand entrepreneur. Heck, even another person that pops up in my mind that actually reinvented themselves is Terry Shepard, who actually decided to find a market that wasn't represented that much, and that was the Latino market, or Latinx, if that's still a thing.
Hmm.
Not sure if that's even a proper term anymore, but the
I wouldn't know
Latino
either.
market where
Hmm.
yeah, exactly. So
I'm so lost.
no offense.
Yeah.
Yeah, so many terms changed. They're like hot for like 3 minutes to 3 months. But anyways, he actually decided to interview a police officer and base a character off of her, and her name is Jessica Ramirez in the book, where it's actually a female police officer, like busting crime, like just doing different things. And he also does audiobook reading as well. And he originally had a career in corporate America for years on end, just doing personal development. Now he's doing something that he wanted to do for years. So reinvention, that's one of the major things. Like if you want to have a long, successful career in whatever you do, or even in business, sometimes it pays off to really reinvent yourself and add on to your wonderful arsenal and really get yourself out there.
Mm. And speaking of reinvention, you've also kind of done that as well. So when you started your business side of your work, um, what are some of the biggest challenges you faced as an entrepreneur?
Ah, biggest challenge, being humbled. That's one of them. That's definitely one of them. Because the business started with my book where I grew up in a church and my first ever book signing was there. And like sold 100 copies of the book, and it was a long
Wow,
line of people. And I'm like, wow, this is
that's
freaking
so
amazing.
cool.
And then oh, it was cool. It was so cool. I was on top of a tower, and then I fell right off of it because I did two more events right after that. Where the second event I had about three attendees, four if I count the camera guy who was actually a good friend of mine, and then another event where I went to a book festival and I signed up for a Friday table, and I didn't really sell much books at all. I sold only 4 books that day. So that big setup for success was right around the corner where I got a little lesson in being humble. And you're going to get smacked in business. You're going to get humbled real quick. You're going to discover yourself real quick. If you want to really get on a personal development journey to develop metaphorical 8 pack abs, start a business and try to succeed. Especially in the beginning if you don't have a good foundation.
Listen, I absolutely relate to what you're saying. So it's and you know the whole idea of like entrepreneurship and business and startups, it's like it's so romanticized and and it's so
Yes.
trendy and people don't talk about
Yes.
the what it really means. And there's just I've been in that startup world prior to. I'm kind of now on the exit side of it, and I'm just and it's been such a beautiful experience, but we're being acquired. My startup is being acquired, so end of December 31st. I'm no longer kind of, yeah, so it's very exciting. And and part of me is I'm like, ah, like I'm excited for the next thing, but I need a minute. I need just a minute to just do regular things because it is very romanticized and nobody talks about that, the so many humble moments that you come across, but it's all beautiful and it's all, as long as you know how to manage those ups and downs, I think
Yeah.
that's where it's at. And to stay, as you can probably relate, to stay consistent and consistently grow is so challenging. I don't think people understand how hard that is. It's continuous. It's reinvention on like daily basis. Like sometimes literally like
Yeah.
daily basis, you have to reinvent yourself and keep trying. And then at some point you're like, when do I stop trying? It's like when do you just pivot, or when do you, stop trying, or when do you sell it, or when, it's like, it's very difficult. It's rewarding as it is difficult, for sure. Um,
I guess that's R&D for you,
yeah,
huh?
basically.
Rewarding and difficult.
Yeah, that's the new R&D right there. Absolutely. Oh gosh. So what are some of the things you're excited for, the coming months for you? I know you're speaking at a very cool podcast conference coming up. What are some things that you're super looking forward to?
Yes, definitely. The Podfest conference you mentioned, that's in January 2023. And also got another speaking engagement in May as well for the Maryland Library Association as
Oh,
well. Definitely going to be talking more about leadership based off of John Maxwell's book Leadership, about the essential changes that leaders have to make. And also, my first ever online course, excited about that. That's in the works as well. Brick by brick, stone by stone, it's finally coming together. It's going to be a book and an online course. That's definitely something I'm excited about. And also looking forward to episode 600 that probably goes live in a couple weeks from the time of this recording. And 700 is only going to be next year at this rate. So yeah, I'm getting close to my big, wonderful goal of interviewing 1,000 authors across the globe. So those are the few
wow.
things I'm excited about.
That's awesome. You got to do some little celebration when you hit that. That's awesome. That's impressive. I'm on like up episode like 60, 70 or something. And it's wow, that's massive, Dom. That's beautiful. I love that. How long you been doing it now? How many years?
5 years, believe it or not. I still
Wow.
can't
But
believe
that's a lot of episodes in 5 years. That's a lot of episodes. Good for you. That's a lot of episodes in 5 years. It's above average. That's awesome. I mean, the consistency, your kind of determination, and your interest, and to talk to that many authors, and to do it with such enthusiasm, and just to be as excited as you are as an individual, and as passionate as you are about this topic. All those years down the road, this is where it's at, like, right, this is what we look for, I think, as people, is like, how do you find that purpose, that passion, that hobby that can actually become a career or a business, or just some kind of a place of joy and peace. Right. And I think that says a lot, so congrats on that, Dom.
Thanks a bunch. And congrats to you too. Still 70 episodes, nothing to sneeze at. Folks barely make it to seven.
True. No, I love it. I don't have any intentions. I'm actually kind of continue with it, and kind of amping it up even more. So I'm really excited about what's the next few months, and the guests such yourself. So it's good. So tell me a little bit more about, so how many books you have out now?
Yes. So four in total. Two are multi-author books where I contributed a chapter, and the other two are solo projects. So the two solo projects, extra proud about those. First one, Going North, where it all began, and then the follow-up book, Stay the Course, The Elite Performer's 7 Secret Keys to Sustainable Success.
Very cool, very cool. And so where can people find those books, where they can find you? I know you have your dombrightmon.com right there. Is that the best way to get in touch with you, or where do you hang out with us on social media?
Yes, ma'am. Definitely you're right. DomBrightmon.com is probably one of the best places ever, since that ain't changing. And social media, LinkedIn's okay. I try to get in. It's like I take one step in and then two steps back with LinkedIn, but definitely Facebook is good. Twitter's still good. I know a lot of folks aren't Elon Musk fans, some of them, especially in the writers community, but hey, I don't care. I'm still use Twitter. Shoot. I don't care who
Hmm.
owns the darn thing. It's like, hey, if it's generating me attention and business, I'm gonna use the tool. Like at the end of the day, it's a freaking tool for connecting with people. And definitely, yeah, yep, definitely Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, not so much. Not so much. That's probably the one that's got the least attention from me in the past few months. So yeah, you can find me on all those at Dom Brightman. It's all easy.
Sounds good. And one more question for you. What is a question you would like to leave my audience with, for them to kind of ponder on whatever topic you wish? But what is your favorite question, I guess, to ask maybe yourself, maybe um, your audience, your guests?
Yeah, sweet. Well, one of them is definitely, when was the last time you've done something for the first time?
Hmm.
When was the last time you've done something for the first time?
I like that. When was the last time you've done something for the first time? That's such a great question, Dom. That is so great. When was the last time you've done something for the first time? I love it. That is definitely something to ponder. I'm literally gonna have to think about that. And I'm sure my audience is sitting there going, that's a great question. That's a difficult one too, in a way. You have to really think about it. It's a beautiful
Oh
question.
yeah, especially if they're adrenaline junkies.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, well, that's a question to ponder for my audience. For those that are listening, that's a question to ponder during your quiet time in the morning tomorrow when you have that quiet time to think. That's definitely something I'm going to put on my list. So thank you for that, Dom. Dom, it's been a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you for your time. You inspire me as a podcaster in more ways than one, as an author as well. So thank you for making the time.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you for making the time too. It's definitely an uphill battle, and you made time for me too. So definitely, I appreciate you and your wonderful audience. Woo! Yeah.
Thank you.